Hi guys, welcome to Informer. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe Informer. I knew Joe for about 10 years. I often hung out at his bar, the Landing Strip, drinking PBR and looking at the pretty girls who worked there. Different girls worked there over time, but they were all very attractive. The ones working now, Karen, Tina, and Cookie, were no exception. They made me really interested. But maybe what I said isn't completely accurate. Well, that's how I felt about Karen and Tina. But with Cookie, it was different. When I saw her, I thought, why can't I have a wife like her instead of the one I'm married to? It's not that she wasn't as attractive as the other two. She was even more so. But with Karen and Tina, it was more about having fun. While with Cookie, it felt like she could be a lifelong partner. But no matter how much I wished to be with one of them for a night, it wouldn't happen. I'm the type of guy who takes marriage seriously, even when things are tough. And right now, things are really tough. I recently found out that my wife cheated on me with her boss, and some of our friends knew but didn't tell me. It made me question if they were true friends. It seems like a real friend would tell you if they knew your spouse was betraying you. I believe they were friends with Claudius more than with me. They weren't really my friends, not the kind I'd send Christmas cards to. I was sitting, almost done with my beer, thinking not so nice thoughts about my wife when Bobby Denon sat beside me at the bar. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked. Bobby replied, "Same old. Will you be here tomorrow evening?" "What about tomorrow? Open mic night? We've got some good talent." "Yes, but I'll have to suffer listening to all your stupid jokes about blondes. I see your wife's face when you tell them, and I wonder why she hasn't cut out your tongue while you're sleeping." "I don't sleep next to her." I thought this was strange. But before I could comment, he said, "Got the talk to Joe about tomorrow," and got up and left. Karen came over and asked if I was ready for another PBR, and I said no. I finished what was in front of me, then got up and headed home. Claudia had dinner ready when I arrived and greeted me with a hug and a kiss, which I reciprocated. Claudia didn't know that I knew about her secret life with her boss, and I didn't want her to know that I knew until I had all the cards in my hands. Until I do that, I still want to have a nightlife, so I'll have to keep what I know to myself. When I found out what Claudia was up to, I contacted a lawyer and learned the cold hard truth about divorce in a no-fault state. Long story short, I was in a quandary and Claudia would walk away smiling. According to the lawyer, my only other options are to just leave without divorcing Claudia or telling her where I went, or to smile, put up with it, and live with it. It's easy to tell when it's not happening to you. But in the end, I decided to do just that, to live with it until I was in a financial position to leave Claudia on my terms. My terms were to give her nothing and leave Thomas Billings broken. It would be easy to ruin her boss. All I had to do was tell his wife what he was doing, and from what I understood, she would put a stop to it and kick him out. Sarah Billings was Barton Benton's daughter, and he loved her very much. But she wasn't someone to be played with. Benton met his wife at a company Christmas party. He insisted on a legal agreement before they got married. This agreement meant that Sarah wouldn't get control of Benton Industries if something happened to him. Sarah was his only child, and he wanted her to stay in charge of the family business. How did I know all this? Claudia worked as a secretary at Benton Industries for Sarah. She got caught up in office gossip and brought it home, making it dinner talk. When Benton and his wife died in a plane crash, Sarah inherited the company. But she didn't want to run it, so Thomas Billings, the purchasing manager, became the new president. Sarah kept important titles like CEO and chairman of the board to keep control of things, even if she wasn't running the show directly. All I had to do with Billings was let his wife know about his exploits. Claudia followed Billings into the executive offices, but not as his secretary. She was promoted to personal assistant to the president. The promotion made me happy and sad at the same time. The extra money was nice because we had just bought a new house, new furniture and appliances. What upset me was that the new job required her to travel with Billings as he flew around the country negotiating new contracts and such. Claudia went away for 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 times a month. I wanted my wife to be with me and not fly around the country, but she was happy with her new job, so I kept quiet and accepted it. That is, I was okay with it until Claudia and I went to a dance at the Moose Club. We had a great time drinking, dancing, and chatting with friends. About 2 hours into the party, I needed to use the bathroom. I was sitting in one of the booths when Brett and Chuck came in. I knew it was them by their voices. Chuck said, "I know, and I really want to be with her." Brett replied, "I'm not sure if she can make time for you between her boss and Wally. She's got a lot going on. Chuck then said he thought he could get her attention by threatening to tell Wally about her trips with her boss. Brett warned him against it, saying Wally wouldn't believe him and might even get angry. Chuck agreed, saying he didn't believe it either. But I knew better. I trusted Claudia completely. She loved me just as much as I loved her, and she would never, ever cheat on me. I almost confronted those guys right then and there but stopped myself. Making a scene would only embarrass Claudia. So I pushed those thoughts aside and tried to enjoy the rest of the party. When it was over, we went home, and Claudia did her best to make the night special for us. When we hugged afterward, I knew that my wife had never cheated on me. Funny thing with us humans, we have this thing called human nature, and one of the things human nature forces us to do is prove things to ourselves. Someone says you can't do it, so you have to prove that you can. Someone else says it's just not possible, so you have to prove that it's possible. Someone says your wife is cheating on you, and you have to prove that she is not. What's the easiest way to prove this? Show up where she is on one of her trips and see for yourself that it's a stone-cold lie. And that's what I did. Billings and Claudia went to Houston, and Claudia, as always, called me and told me where they were staying. I boarded the next flight to Houston. At the front desk, I asked if my wife had checked in yet, and after showing her ID, I was told that she had checked in and was in room 306. I said she was in Houston to meet her cousin and asked if he had checked in yet. Yes, of course, Cousin Thomas was in room 901. I headed to the home phone to call Claudia's number when I suddenly saw her and Billings exiting the elevator, holding hands. They smiled at each other. They stopped and kissed as the elevator doors closed behind them, then headed to the hotel bar. I had seen enough to know that what I had overheard was true, and all that was left was to turn around, go home and decide what to do next. But then human nature intervened. She said to me, "You need to find out more, Wally." I couldn't just follow them into the bar because they might notice me. So I had to change how I looked enough so they wouldn't recognize me. I went to the hotel shop. They had a lot of stuff from the Houston Astros baseball team. I bought a baseball cap, a windbreaker, and a bag with the team's logo on it. I also got some cheap sunglasses. Then I grabbed a magazine and went to the public restroom. I took off my jacket and tie, put them in the bag, removed the lenses from my glasses, put on the cap and windbreaker, and went to the bar. It wasn't the best disguise, but I didn't think Claudia or Billings would be inspecting everyone closely. They probably weren't even expecting to see me in Houston, and after being so open with each other in public, I didn't think they would be worrying about private investigators. I noticed them when I entered the bar. They sat in a booth with drinks in front of them, and they kissed. I sat at a table so I could see them, ordered a drink, and sat there sipping my drink and pretending to read a magazine. Looking over the top of the magazine I held in front of me, I saw that Claudia's left hand was under the table, and I saw it move slightly. It was disgusting. They drank 2 drinks each, played kissing for a while, and after about half an hour, they got up and left the bar. They walked past me and didn't even look at me. I waited a minute and then stood up and followed them. I watched as they walked hand in hand to the elevator, pressed the call button, and kissed until the door opened. They entered, the door closed, and the elevator went up. He didn't stop on the 3rd floor so Claudia could get out and go to her room. He went straight into the night, stopped for a minute, and then went down. He also didn't stop on the 3rd floor on the way down. I had seen enough and went home. I saw a lawyer, received bad news, and began the process to end my relationship with Claudia. When I finished work on Wednesday, I didn't even bother going home. I received a call from Claudia who told me that Billings had an early morning meeting in Detroit so they would fly there from Houston, but she would be back the next day. I stopped by the landing strip to have a couple of beers and see if Bobby was right when he told me they had some good talent lined up for the evening. I took a bar stool, ordered my usual PBR, and made myself comfortable. As usual, Bobby started the evening with a joke about blondes. 2 blonde women were riding in an elevator. Before they reached their floor, the elevator stopped, and a very good-looking guy got in. He smiled at them and pushed the button for the next floor. He then stood there, enjoying the view as the elevator went up. When the door opened, he smiled at the blondes, turned, and walked out. But as he left, the blondes noticed a lot of dandruff on his back. The first blonde turned to the second and said, "Yuck." The second blonde said, "It's okay. If I can get him home, I'll give him head and shoulders." The first blonde looked confused and asked, "How do you give your shoulders?" Bobby got a good laugh from everyone except his wife. She just sat at her table in the back and gave him dirty looks. He continued and introduced the next aspiring comedian. The guy got up on stage, looked at the crowd and said, "Two boys were arguing when the teacher came into the room." The teacher asked them why they were arguing, and the first boy said, "We found $10 and decided to give it to whoever can tell the biggest lie." "You should be ashamed," said the teacher. "When I was your age, I didn't even know what a lie was." The two boys looked at each other, nodded, and then gave $10 to the teacher. He received a polite laugh and continued, "A man comes to the doctor and says, 'Doctor, wherever I touch, it hurts.' The doctor asked him what he meant, and the man said, 'When I touch my shoulder, it hurts. When I touch my knee, it hurts. When I touch my forehead, it hurts a lot.' The doctor nodded in understanding and said, 'I know exactly what the problem is. You have a broken finger.' He wasn't that funny, so I was sipping my beer and looking around the crowd, not for any reason, just people watching. When Cookie sat down next to me, 'Hey, handsome, can you buy the poor worker a drink?' I got Karen's attention and pointed at Cookie, and Karen nodded. After a minute, she put a screwdriver in front of Cookie. 'Why is Wally lucky enough to have your company?' 'Just curious.' 'Curious about what?' 'About you.' 'Me?' 'Yes, you.' 'You can't be serious.' 'Why not?' 'Because you're handsome and a good guy.' 'Good? Me?' 'Yes, you. You come here often, and I see how you look at Karen, Tina, and me, and you like what you see. But you're different from others who come here. You keep your hands to yourself and don't say rude things. So, why didn't you try to get closer to one of us?' 'You know why, Cookie? I'm married.' 'Why? Why are you married to someone who cheats on you? You should know she's cheating.' This surprised me, and Cookie saw it. 'You didn't know? How could you not know? Everyone else does.' 'How do you know?' She pointed and said, 'See that guy sitting over there in the corner with red hair? That's my brother Rick, and he works at Benton. He came in here one day and saw you sitting here talking to me. Later, he told me that he felt sorry for you. And when I asked him why, he told me. What I can't understand is why, if everyone knows, no one bothered to tell me. I don't know, maybe for any number of reasons. Name a few. These days, there are what are called open marriages. There are couples who swap partners with others and guys who like their wives to have intim with other men. There are those like you who love you too much to hurt you, and those who may be on the other side of the coin and hate you enough to be glad that this is happening to you. There may be people who love you, but love your wife more." She finished her screwdriver and said, "Break's over. We need to get back to work." I watched her walk away and wondered if she'd say yes to a date once I got rid of Claudia. At the podium, Bobby announced that it was now time for anyone in the audience who wanted to try. And a voice from the back row said, "I want to try it." Everyone in the audience, including Bobby, was surprised to see his blonde wife, Brina, stand up and head to the stage. Bobby looked stunned as he handed the microphone to his wife. "I know that my stupid husband likes to tell blonde jokes while looking straight at me. But did you notice that Bobby is also blonde? It's time to get some change, honey." An Irishman, a Mexican man, and a blonde man were working in construction on scaffolding on the 20th floor of a building. They were having lunch, and the Irishman said, "Boiled beef and cabbage. If they give me boiled beef and cabbage for lunch one more time, I will jump off this building." The Mexican opened his lunchbox again and exclaimed, "Burritos again. If they give me a burrito again, I'll jump too." The blonde opened his lunch and said, "Bologna again. If they give me a bologna sandwich again, I'll jump too." The next day, the Irishman opened his lunch, saw boiled beef and cabbage, and jumped to his death. The Mexican opened his lunch, saw a burrito, and jumped too. The blonde opened his lunch, saw bologna, and jumped too. At the funeral, the Irishman's wife cried, "If I had known he was so tired of boiled beef and cabbage, I wouldn't have given it to him again." The Mexican's wife also cried, saying, "I could have given him tacos or enchiladas. I didn't know he hated burritos so much." Everyone looked at the blonde's wife, and she said, "Don't look at me, he packed his own lunch." This made everyone laugh. Then she told some jokes. What do you call a blonde guy with an ick of 35? And why don't blondes eat more M&Ms? They're too hard to clean. She also said, "What's the difference between a blonde and government bonds? Bonds are maturing." Brianna received a standing ovation from the women in the audience and their men who wanted to stay close to their ladies. Usually, when the comedian finished, Bobby would come over, take the microphone, and ask if anyone else wanted to try. If no one else wanted to try, Bobby would tell one or two more blonde jokes, thank everyone for coming, and bid everyone good night. This time it didn't happen that way. When Bobby finally walked up to the podium, he bent down to pick up the microphone and muttered a curse word, not realizing that the microphone was sensitive enough to hear it. There was silence in the room, and when Bobby raised the microphone to his mouth and said, "That's it for today, guys," there was none of the usual applause and approval. I got up and went home. The next 3 months passed with me pretending to be a loving husband to a woman who was pretending to be a loving wife. I received several commissions and one bonus check, which I cashed and hid in a safe that Claudia didn't know about. It was a small amount, about 10,000, and it was not enough to support me after a divorce in which I would have to give up half of everything I had. And then the gods smiled at me. Like many other people, I bought lottery tickets, crossed my fingers, and dreamed. I got lucky and bought a winning Powerball ticket. I matched 4 numbers. There was a Powerball and a power play, so the ticket cost $40,000 before taxes. It ended up being about $28,000 after they were paid. It wouldn't make me rich, but it would be enough to start a new life after Claudia. I had 6 months to cash it out, so I needed to get the divorce to be final before I got the money. If not, it would become part of the things we'd split between us. The timing was good. Claudia had just gotten a promotion that paid her a bit more than me, so I wouldn't have to pay child support. I'd have to pay for legal help unless I could somehow make Claudia file for divorce, but I didn't think that would happen. My main worry was that Claudia might argue against the divorce. If she did, it could take a long time before the decision had to be made. And then it would be one more thing we'd have to share equally. I needed to find a way to make sure Claudia wouldn't want to fight it. I didn't really know if she wanted the divorce or not, but I needed to make sure she didn't. But no, in no-fault divorces, even if someone cheated, it doesn't matter. You can show evidence of cheating on your wife's things, and it won't matter. You still have to divide everything equally. Even if I file for divorce and claim infidelity, Claudia might laugh at me and tell me that I have no proof, that it's all in my imagination. And we need to go to couples counseling to figure out where my insecurities come from, and then deal with it. The fact is that I had no proof. Saying "come on, everyone knows" is not proof, and neither is the fact that I saw them holding hands and kissing. I needed hard audio and video evidence to make the claim substantiated evidence that I could throw on the table in front of Claudia, so she would know she was caught, and that she would be wasting her time trying to fight to keep us together. I didn't have this evidence. And after talking to several private investigation agencies, I realized that I couldn't afford to get the evidence I needed this way. While I was sitting in my doctor's waiting room, a woman brought an elderly man in a wheelchair into the room. When she approached the reception desk, the man was sitting there alone and silent. Just when I thought I should make small talk with him, the boy slid off his mother's lap and walked over to the wheelchair, putting his hand on the old man's arm. He said, "I understand how you feel. My mother makes me ride in a stroller too." The woman, her name was Maria, had a good laugh at this and continued, "As a pediatric nurse, I have the difficult task of administering vaccinations to children. One day, I walked into the room to give 4-year-old Lizzie a shot. When she saw the needle, she screamed, 'No, no, no.' Her mother scolded her and said, 'Lizzie, this is not good.' To which Lizzie screamed even louder, 'No thank you, no thank you.' People laughed with respect at this. She finished her speech by saying, 'I was out riding my bike with my 8-year-old granddaughter, Carolyn.' I was lost in thought for a moment. I told her, 'In 10 years, you'll want to be with your friends, and you won't be walking, biking, and swimming with me like you are now.' Carolyn just shrugged and said, 'In 10 years, you'll be too old for all that stuff.' It was open mic night at the landing strip, and I had a few drinks before heading home to the house without Claudia. She was on a business trip again. Cookie sat down next to me and asked the usual question, 'Can you buy the hard-working lady a drink?' She did this every time I visited. I smiled and waved at Karen, who came over with Cookie's drink. We seemed to have a routine now. 'You seem calm today, W.E. You don't seem to be having much fun,' Karen said. 'I've got something on my mind, Cookie,' I replied. 'I feel like telling her everything. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me. If you can't afford it, find someone who can. You said you don't think his wife knows, so tell her. Let her unleash the dogs on those cheaters. She'll catch them, divorce him, and expose your wife or husband's affair. Everyone will know, and you won't have to pay a penny.' I laughed, hugged her, and kissed her. 'Thank you, thank you, thank you,' I said, kissing her again. She laughed and said, 'Once you get rid of your wife, maybe we can do this again?' 'Something to look forward to,' I replied, standing up and leaving the bar. The next day, I called Sarah Billings, reminded her who I was, and asked to talk to her. She asked what about, and I told her it was about a sensitive situation that affected both of us and couldn't be discussed over the phone. She agreed to meet me for lunch at Coxie at noon. I got there 10 minutes early and told Jared I was expecting a guest and described her. Then I took the booth in the back. Mrs. Billings arrived promptly at noon, and after settling down opposite me in the booth, she got right down to business. What exactly do you want to talk about? While I was waiting for her to arrive, I was thinking about the best way to bring up the topic and still didn't have a clear idea until she sat down. Her straightforward approach solved it for me. I got straight to the point. Your husband and my wife are having an affair. Quite a long one, I'm afraid. You can't be serious. I'm afraid I'm quite serious. Do you have any proof? Only what I saw with my own eyes. Did you actually see them? Not involved in the act as such, but I've seen enough to convince me. I don't understand. You saw them but didn't see them. I explained how I found out about what they were doing and how I went to Houston and what I saw there. I know this might not be proof that the courts will accept, but I'm completely sure about what happened after they left the elevator on the 9th floor. I wouldn't have any doubts if I saw it myself. What will you do? Are you going to divorce her as soon as possible? Thank you for telling me. I had 2 reasons for telling you what was going on. 1, I thought you should know. What about the second reason? It's quite selfish. The divorce will be quicker if Claudia doesn't fight it. But without solid evidence, she might fight it. The problem is, I don't have solid evidence. I thought about hiring a private investigator to get the evidence, but I can't afford it. However, you can. I hope you'll be willing to get the evidence needed to get rid of the cheater. Then, as a thank you for warning you, you'll share the evidence with me. She thought for a moment and then said, So, you'll suggest we have an affair for revenge, and then you'll tell them about it. I laughed and said, Come on, Mrs. Billings. There's no way anyone would believe that someone like you would sleep with someone like me, even to get back at her husband. Besides, if we do that and let them know, this will interfere with what I'm trying to achieve. It will give Claudia something she can use to counter-sue, and it will lead to a drawn-out divorce. I want to get rid of the cheating idiot as soon as possible. I think this will affect my divorce too. Okay, we'll just write it down as to what could have been and move on with things. We exchanged mobile phone numbers and then parted ways. When I got home, Claudia was at dinner and we talked about our day. We both continued to play the role of loving spouses, so we snuggled on the couch and watched TV until bed. Ben went to bed and had in Tom. I don't know if Claudia considered it lovemaking or not, but to me, it was just a night. Tuesday was a repeat of Monday, and I expected Wednesday to be a repeat of both Monday and Tuesday. But at noon on Wednesday, Claudia called me and said that she and her boss had to be in Detroit on Thursday morning, so they were on the 4 p.m. flight, and she won't be home that night. So I did what I usually did when Claudia was away on Wednesday and went to the landing strip. I was late at work and ended up getting there after the open mic night had already started, so I missed Bobby's jokes about blondes. Karen brought me my PBR and I turned my attention to the podium. I looked at the table where his wife usually sat and saw that she was not there. As far as I remember, she never missed an open mic night, and I wondered if it had something to do with what happened last week. The guy standing there was a regular, but I hadn't seen him on stage before. The economy is so bad, cars are now playing mini golf. Hot Wheels and Matchbox stocks are higher than GM's. McDonald's is selling quarter-pounders without meat. Parents in Beverly Hills have fired their nannies and now need to learn their children's names. A truck carrying Americans was caught trying to sneak into Mexico. Motel 6 no longer keeps the lights on. And finally, the mafia has fired the judges. I laughed politely and then heard, buy the hard-working lady a drink, and turned to see Cookie sitting next to me. It had become a routine, and before I could say anything, Karen had already placed the drink in front of Cookie. I surprised her by grabbing her and kissing her. What was that? She exclaimed. I followed your advice and contacted Sarah Billings. She didn't know her husband was cheating on her. I'm sure she'll deal with him, but I don't know if she'll tell me about it. But that's okay. Like you said, when she divorces him, it will become public knowledge, and I can use it. And all I get for this advice is a kiss. What would you like in return? Ask me again when your divorce is finalized, she replied. I looked at her for a moment and then said, count on it. She smiled, finished her drink, and went back to work. Claudia was home when I got home from work on Thursday and dinner was almost ready when I walked in. She asked, dinner or dessert first? If we start with dessert, we might never get to dinner, and it would be a shame to throw it away. I remember the times when you always chose dessert first. And I remember a time when you weren't cheating. I thought while my mouth said I was much younger then and didn't realize that I needed food to maintain my strength and stamina. After dinner, we snuggled up on the sofa and watched TV, and then went to bed. Claudia made love or pretended to, but I just had into him. The next week was the same, and Claudia did not go on business trips, but she worked late and came in for half a day on Saturday. We had a night those 3 days, and I wondered if it was because she felt guilty and was trying to ease her conscience by giving me as much as she gave to her lover, or because she liked the knowledge of the fact that I was sleeping with her after her lover. I doubted that I would ever know the answer to this question. Sarah Billings called me on Tuesday and asked me to meet her at Troke for lunch. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the box in the back. There was a large envelope on the table in front of her, and she pushed it toward me as I sat down. It's everything you could want and more. You already know she's cheating on you, so I wouldn't watch the CD if I were you. The images will probably get stuck in your mind. I know they'll get stuck in mine. He will be in for a big surprise when I submit the documents to him. My investigator found out that Thomas rented the apartment to use it for secret meetings with someone he was seeing. If he had rented it in his own name, my investigator wouldn't have had the right to set up audio and video equipment there. But he made a mistake. Instead of renting it in his own name, he paid for it through the company. Because he paid for it through the company, and I'm an officer of the company, I could authorize it. And I did. Let me guess. Tuesday and Thursday when Claudia said she had to work late, and Saturday when she claimed she had to work half a day. You're correct. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday were for long lunch breaks. I'm surprised they didn't plan something for Sunday to make the week perfect. Our wedding anniversary was on Sunday and he couldn't leave. Now that you have your proof, what are you going to do? Hire a lawyer and file for divorce. Use mine. He already has the papers ready. I plan to file for divorce from my husband right at work right before I demote him to the job he held before we got married. If we do everything right, we can file for divorce both at the same time. Give me your lawyer's number, and I'll call him as soon as I get back to the office. I thought you would do this, so I told him to expect your call. One more thing, because of some things that were said after they finished their affairs, I am filing an order of protection against him at the same time as the divorce. To you, it might be worth doing the same. Why? What was said? They were talking about how it would be easier for them if you and I were no longer alive. Tom said something like, if I died, the prenuptial agreement would be voided and he would be on the easy street. His wife laughed and said that if you died, it would only bring her $100,000, $200,000 if your death were an accident. And then she asked him if he had any ideas how it could be done, and he said that this is something to think about. I can tell by the tone of their voices that they were just joking, but this gave me another reason to hit him. My problem is that I don't think I can stand in front of the judge at a hearing and say I'm afraid for my life without laughing. She was lying either way. I only have $25,000 in life insurance, but I agree with you that there's another reason to confront her. How much vacation time do you have? 3 weeks. Why do you ask? I was thinking, the day after I demote Tommy, I could make you the new president of the company. It would be just for show, of course. But imagine how angry he'd be if the husband of the woman he slept with became his new boss. He'd be furious. You could even act like you're going to gather reasons to fire him. Why not just fire him instead of demoting him? He will likely sue the company for wrongful termination. What kind of illegal termination? The apartment he rents with company money for personal use is an illegal use of company funds for personal use. His relationship with a married employee under his direct report opens the company to an intimate harassment lawsuit. If he gets tired from Claudia and kicks her out, and she'll get angry enough to try to get back at him. All this, plus the fact that he's cheating on you, shows that he's unreliable, and you can't keep someone you can't trust around. Discuss everything with your lawyer and see what he says. The downside to this argument is that you'll have to keep Claudia, even though you probably want to rip her hair out by the roots. Why would I want to do that? Leave her, because of intimate harassment. All she would have to say is that your husband told her he would fire her and give her a bad reference if she didn't go along with it. What you need to do is to leave her, give her a small raise, and promote her to the worst position in the company. And after a while, she will get tired of the bad job and leave. I looked at my watch. I need to get back to work. Thanks for that, I said, holding the envelope in front of me and standing up. What about my idea of making you president for a few weeks? It won't do anything if you fire him and he won't be there to see it. Maybe I just want to keep you around so I can get to know you better. We can talk about this when we have more time. You have my number. Call me. As I drove to work, I thought about her words that she wanted to get to know me better. I planned to call her, but only to talk about the divorce and when to file from our unfaithful spouses. But as for dating more, no. She was like steak, lobster, and champagne, and I was like Diet Coke, burger, and fries. It just wouldn't work out. When I got back to the office, I called the lawyer whose number she gave me. He said he had been waiting for my call for quite a while. We talked, and he said the paperwork was ready. He just needed to put my information instead of Sarah's. He told me the price, and I gave him my credit card number. He said the documents would be ready for me to sign the next day, so I made an appointment with him at 4 o'clock. Claudia was in one of her horny moods when I got home, so after dinner, we went to the bedroom early and had rough and tum. I knew we didn't have much time left together, and since I had no idea how long it would take me to find another partner after Claudia was notified of the divorce, I decided to take as much as I could. When we finished, Claudia snuggled up to me, kissed my neck, muttered I love you, and fell asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if she really meant it, and if so, why she cheated on me. I was still thinking about it when I fell asleep. At 4 o'clock, I entered the office of Dewey J. Tam, and Hohen was shown into the office of Stanley Howe. I was surprised to see Sarah there, and it turned out that signing my documents was only part of the reason for my coming. This was also a strategy meeting. The question was when to file for divorce for the upcoming ex-spouses. I wanted to do it yesterday, but Sarah wanted to wait for the right moment. The right moment, in her opinion, was when the couple was on one of their trips. She imagined it happening as they walked out of an elevator into a hotel lobby, holding hands. I insisted on immediate notification, and finally Sarah asked, "Why is it so important that you can't wait a week or two?" I opened my mouth to tell her and closed it just as quickly. I wasn't a lawyer and didn't know the law, and I could be wrong. But it could be that hiding assets was against some law or another, and something that my lawyer wouldn't allow me to do. "It's just important to me is all," I said. The meeting ended with the matter being put on hold until Sarah knew when the creep and Claudia would be heading out again. There was a coffee shop on the ground floor of the building, and as we got off the elevator, Sarah asked me to join her for a cup of coffee. We ordered coffee and sat down at the table. Sarah took a sip of her coffee and then said, "What was it you were going to tell us why you were in such a hurry to notify your wife? But then you suddenly decided not to talk about it. So come on, what's going on?" I told her about the lottery ticket, its expiration date, and why I suddenly decided not to tell her about it. She laughed and said, "It's no problem, Wally. Give me the ticket. I'll buy it from you and cash it in." "I can't do it." "Why not? Think about why you came to me in the first place. You couldn't afford to hire a private investigator, but I could. You knew I could because I'm rich. I'm still rich, Wally, and what good is wealth if you can't use it to get what you want? I want Tommy to be notified as I described in the house office. To get what I want, I will use my wealth, and you will come clean. If I buy your ticket like this, I'll give you $40,000 in cash, and you can hide it in a safe deposit box or under your mattress. You won't have to pay state or federal taxes, but you'll end up paying taxes on it. So what? I'll give the ticket to my accountant, and by the time it's time to pay taxes, it will disappear into all this junk and mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. Once again, Wally, I'm just using my wealth to get what I want." I shrugged and agreed. I don't know how she arranged it, but 2 days later, she gave me $40,000 in cash, and I put it in my safe. Sarah got what she wanted, and everything happened just as she hoped. Claudia and the man walked out of the elevator in the lobby of the Atlanta Marriott Hotel, smiling and holding hands. Their smiles disappeared as a beautiful blonde walked up to them, handed them each an envelope, and told them they had been notified. Claudia looked at the envelope in her hand and began to cry. The man looked at him, and his face took on a menacing look. He tried to tear it in half, but couldn't because it was too thick. He threw it on the floor and kicked it, and it slid across the floor and into the elevator. As soon as the doors closed, Claudia fell into one of the chairs in the hall and cried into her hands. Believe it or not, when I turned off the CD player and removed the disc, I felt sad that Sarah had arranged for the video recording. I loved Claudia and still had feelings for her. Seeing her in trouble made me feel sad. But the feelings I still have for her weren't strong enough to overcome what she did to the man. I thought back to the morning she was notified, and I remembered every one of the calls I saw her make that I ignored. I wonder what she was thinking, what she could have said to make a difference. When she came home, she found that I had changed the locks and couldn't get in. I let her ring the doorbell and knock on the door for 15 minutes before I opened the door. Have you not read all the documentation in the envelope you were given? Have you not read the order of protection requiring you to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, my place of work, and any other place where I may be? Leave now before I call the police, and they come and arrest you. You can't do this to me, Wally. This is my home too. The judge who signed the warrant didn't take this into account. Now leave before I call the police. Damn it, Wally, you have to let me talk to you. You have to let me explain. No, I shouldn't. Claudia. That sickness you said I got from you explained everything, and I slammed the door in her face. It was a lie, of course. She didn't give me a disease, but she didn't know that, and I hoped the idea would make her worry until she got tested. 5 minutes later, she was still knocking, so I called the police. 2 officers came in a car. I showed them the papers, and they told Claudia to leave. She argued with them until they said they'd arrest her if she didn't go away. She looked angry at the house and left. I waited 2 days and then called her. I said I'd meet her at the bar to let her talk. We met and I heard what I expected. She did it for us. She did this because the money would help pay off our debts, and once that was done, she planned to leave. She only loved me, and with Billings, it was just a night and not even very good in him. I was much better. We can overcome this because we love each other. Just give her a chance. I listened to her and then said my piece. Just sign the paperwork and mail it in, Claudia. If you sign, all the videos of you and your lover having an affair will never reach your family and friends. Just sign and leave it, Claudia. After watching the videos of you and your lover, these scenes will remain etched in my memory forever. As long as you're there to remind me of them, we're done, Claudia. Accept it and move on. Damn it, Wally. I don't want a divorce. I love you. Then you should never have cheated on me. You are now used and damaged goods, and I want nothing more to do with you. Consider yourself lucky. At least you still have a job, which is more than can be said for your partner. I stood up and left her there, knowing that when she was ready to leave, she'd find out I hadn't paid the bill, and she'd have to pay it. Sarah called me 3 days later and asked to meet for lunch. We met at Troxy, and after Mandy took our order, Sarah told me what happened after her husband was notified. He never found the envelope he kicked into the elevator, so he never read the protection order. When he got home, he couldn't get in because Sarah had changed the locks. He started banging on the door, kicking it, and yelling at Sarah to open it. He didn't notice a car parked on the street with Avery's security service written on the door. 2 people got out of the car, approached him, and politely asked him to leave. He told them to go away and get off his property. One of the guards told him that they were hired to protect the property, and that he would comply with an order of protection requiring him to stay at least 500 feet away from the house and Mrs. Billings. The creep again told them to get off his property, and when they didn't move, he pushed one of them. When he awoke after being tossed, he found that 2 guards had been replaced by 2 police officers, and he was handcuffed. When he left the prison and reported for work, he was stopped by 2 guards who told him that they had orders to keep him away from the hall. One of the security guards picked up the phone and made a call, and 3 minutes later, the HR manager appeared and told him that he was fired from isusing company funds and violating the morals section of the company's policies and procedures. Manuel, you can't do this to me. You seem to have forgotten that I run this place. He raged and shouted. And when he refused to leave, the HR manager called the police. They arrived, and he was on his way to jail for the 2nd time for violating an order of protection. He didn't know that Sarah was in the building. So when he was brought before the judge, the same one he was already in front of for the first time, he was able to beat the charge. Since he had no reason to think that Sarah could be there, she didn't have an office in the building, and she wasn't part of the regular staff, so he had no reason to think she could be there. The judge accepted this and released him. But he felt embarrassed being led out of the building in handcuffs in front of the people he once led. One of these people was Claudia. Sarah, as the chair of the board, took on the duties of acting president and informed Claudia that she no longer needed a personal assistant. Claudia was told to report to the secretary pool until another position could be found for her. She would keep her salary and any other benefits she had acquired as a personal assistant. Then Sarah revealed to her that she actually wanted to fire Claudia, and the only reason she didn't was because I convinced her otherwise. Sarah told me that Claudia seemed surprised that Sarah even knew me, let alone that she was talking to me. The next day, she called Claudia into her office and informed her that she had been promoted to office manager and assigned to a plant 30 miles away. She also told Claudia that she would be getting a 10% raise to ensure she made the same as me, or maybe even a little more so I wouldn't have to pay child support. Sarah ended the meeting by saying that after our divorces were finalized, she intended to spend the night with me to thank me for informing her about her husband's infidelity. Sarah told me that Claudia left the meeting crying and shaking her head. Claudia apparently believed me when I told her there might be videos of her and her lover because she didn't fight the divorce. It was a standard division of assets, and besides Claudia, all I lost was my house. We hadn't lived in it for long, so there wasn't much equity. It was enough for me to make a down payment and move into an apartment. Claudia rented an apartment close to her new job. She still calls me at least once a week, asking for another chance. I always say, thanks, but no thanks. The day after my divorce was finalized, Sarah called and asked when mine would be done. Yesterday, I said. Mine's ending today. Do you have plans for tomorrow? She asked. No, nothing planned, I replied. Well, now you do, she said. Pick me up at 6 o'clock in the evening from my office. We will celebrate our freedom with a night of dinner, drinks and dancing, after which I will fulfill the promise I made to my ex and yours. Promise? What promise? Remember when I told you that I told your wife that after our divorces, I would have ended them with you? I told my husband the same thing. I spoke, and now it's time to fulfill the promise. You don't have to do that. I didn't expect that. I thought you were just teasing. Oh no, honey, I meant every word. I hadn't had a night since the last time with Claudia, and Sarah was a very attractive woman. So I said, I'll be there at 6. See you then, she said and hung up. Sarah looked attractive when I picked her up at 6. As soon as we got into the car, she moved closer to me and kissed me passionately. When she released me, she said that she had made a reservation at a popular restaurant. On the way there, she told me that she wanted the first time to happen on the bed she shared with Thomas. We can do it next time on the bed I shared with my ex. Is this right for me? My mum taught me that ladies always come first. So if that's what you want, then okay. It was lucky that the next day was Saturday, and I didn't have to work because after Sarah was done with me, I was too tired to get out of bed. Sarah and I slept in on Saturday and went to brunch at Pegasus. Then we went back to my house and did the same thing as Friday night, and we went back to her house on Sunday. I couldn't stay at Sarah's on Sunday night because I had to go home and get my work clothes. It wouldn't hurt to have some time to rest a little. For the next 2 months, Sarah and I met 2 or 3 times a week and every weekend. Then on Friday night, while we were spending the weekend at my house, she told me it was our last weekend together. I've enjoyed every minute with you, but I'm not in love with you, she said. And if you're being honest, you're not in love with me either. We're good friends with wonderful benefits, but that's all we have and will ever have. I would really like to continue this, but something has come up that will make this impossible. Is this something I did? I asked. I think we can say yes, she replied. Could you explain this? You divorced your wife, so yes, you could say it was something you did. It's clear as day. It turns out that your ex is a more than average office manager, and my office manager at the central office resigned. Her husband was transferred to the company office in Los Angeles. I am going to transfer your ex from where she is now to my office, and it would be too awkward to work with her while I'm dating you, especially since I have no doubt that she knows about us. That was one of the reasons we started, right? To get under the skin of our exes. Unbelievable. She ruined my life when we were married, and now she's ruining my life when we're not married. I think I should take advantage of our last 3 days, I said, and I picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. We said a tearful goodbye on Sunday, and on Monday morning, I began the next phase of my life as a single man, looking for love or at least a damn good attraction. I spent most of Monday and Tuesday somewhat depressed over the loss of Sarah, but by Wednesday, I was in decent spirits because of all the evenings spent with Sarah. It had been a month and a half since I had been to Landing Strip. I just sat on the bar stool when Karen came over with my PBR and put it in front of me. Welcome back, stranger, she said. Glad to be back, I replied. Tonight's the night I get lucky, and you say yes to a date with me. Karen chuckled. You know I don't date clients. Then date me, and I'll stop coming here, I suggested. Well, lose the tip you leave, she joked. No way, I said. But if you play your cards right, there's one girl here who might give you a chance, Karen said before serving another customer. I was halfway through my 3rd beer when Bobby sat next to me. Where have you been, Wally? Was the talent so bad that you left? Not at all. There were just important things to do. I saw you with your important business in Alhambra last week. Good to see you again. He stood up to talk to other customers and then walked up to the stage to welcome everyone to another open mic night and start a joke about blondes. The blonde bought a thermos. She brought it to work to show her friends. One of her friends, also blonde, asked, "What does it do?" The first blonde said, "It keeps warm things warm and cold things cold." The friend asked, "What do you have in it now?" "A cup of coffee and 2 ice creams." He then introduced the first amateur comedian. It turned out that he was a guy from the day shift at the Maverick store where I refueled in the morning. My mum lives in Newark and I haven't seen her in a couple of years, but we talk on the phone at least once a week. We talked yesterday and when I hung up, I thought about my mom and came up with 10 reasons why I owe my mom. My mom taught me the value of a job well done. If you're gonna kill each other, do it outside. I just finished cleaning. My mom taught me about religion. She said, "You better pray for it to come out of the carpet." My mom taught me how to time travel. She'd say, "If you don't straighten up, I'll punch you in the middle of next week." My mom taught me logic. She'd say, "Because I said so, that's why." My mother taught me foresight. She'd remind me, "Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you have an accident." My mother taught me irony. She'd say, "Keep crying, and I'll give you a reason to cry." My mother taught me the science of osmosis. She'd say, "Shut your mouth and eat your dinner." My mother taught me contortionism. She'd say, "Look at that dirt on the back of your head." My mother taught me endurance. She'd say, "You will sit here until you eat all the spinach." But most of all, my mom taught me patience. She'd say, "Just wait until your dad gets home." I had to laugh at this because I remember hearing most of it from my mom, and judging by the laughter, it also struck a chord with everyone in the room. Halfway through the show, someone sat down in the chair next to me, and I heard the familiar, "Will you buy the poor worker a drink?" As usual, as soon as the words left her mouth, Karen had already placed the drink in front of Cookie. "Remember what I said about the cards, Wally," she told me before leaving to serve another customer. "What did she mean?" asked Cookie. "I think it was her way of telling me that since I'm now divorced, I should ask you out." "Well, so what are you going to do?" "What are my chances of you saying yes?" "You won't know until you ask." "Would you like to have dinner with me on your next day off?" "No, I think that answers my question about my chances." "No, it's not like that." "You're confusing me, girl. I'm getting mixed signals." "No, I can't have dinner with you on my next day off. But I have free time on my second day off." "And when will it be?" "On Tuesday." "Okay, I'll try again. Would you like to have dinner with me next Tuesday?" "Yes, I would like to." She took a napkin from the bar, wrote something on it, and handed it to me. "Call me so we can arrange everything." "I have to go," she said, standing up to go back to work. Since I had just finished my 3rd beer, I decided it was time for me to leave. I arrived at Cookie's door at 6 on Tuesday, and as I pressed the doorbell, I wondered where the next chapter of my life would take me. Second story. I find out the girl I talked to still misses her ex and much more. I'm not sure how to start this, so I'm just going to get straight to it. Me and this girl have been talking for almost a year now. I wanted to make it special and ask her to be my girlfriend on the exact day we made a year. So I held off on asking her for now because I wanted it to be special. We went out tonight and we both got drunk and started kissing. Before this, she said she had extremely terrible experiences kissing, so I asked her what I can do to make it better. She said it was fine, nothing was wrong, but as we were both drunk, I thought she might just be saying that. So I honestly thought I would just check her phone to see if she told her friends or something about how she likes to be kissed. Because, you know, females love to tell each other things. Boy, was I wrong. I went to the message bar and found out not only that she had been texting her ex, but the whole time she missed him and how he kissed her. At that point, I realized on my road to honestly find out what he liked, I discovered something else. Not only that, afterwards I found out more. When she went to a different state, she said she could have lost her virginity 3 separate times. Now, I'll explain what that means. She's a virgin, so I moved extremely slow, especially because of her past of being molested. So I moved extra slow and tried my hardest to make her comfortable just to find out she was ready to lose her virginity 3 different times while in a different state. Now, I've let her know immediately after I found out that I want absolutely zero to do with her, especially since she misses her ex so much and her friend plan on going back to Florida together once they get a license to talk to more guys. I was just done. And again, I didn't snoop her phone to find out this nonsense. I really was just genuinely thinking about her. but I'll take all comments and words of advice, although I still think I should cut her off. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe Informer.